Welcome back to the Open Mic Broadcast Network. It is time for us to continually try to sort out what remains of the Southwestern Athletic Conference football season. Happy to have joining us none other than our football expert, Coach Heisnorth. And Coach, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Trying to get used to this time change like everybody else, but everything's going pretty good.
Man.
Had a chance to go back on the hill and see a few people and catch some football and eat real good, and all the things that go into going to a homecoming game.
Right. Well, look, man, you've been a traveling all-star this season, huh?
Yeah, I get a chance this time of year because of with my dad still living in Louisiana, and he and I and Adam get a chance to try to hunt with him at least once or twice early during the season. Then we have a farm. We have a few cows near Lafayette, Louisiana, so I go and check on them. And it just so happened the last time I went home to check on them, our neighbors had some cows out, so Adam and I had to get out and try to rustle them, and we got them back in the fence and fixed it. So, it's good to get back home and, see the relatives when I get a chance to. But at the same time, it gives me a chance to watch some football at different places and all that type of thing like that.
Right, but you know what? Also, getting back in touch with nature, it brings about a balance, man. That I think part of the problem is a lot of people step out and away from some of their rearing, if you allow me to say it like that, and they become nomads within a nomad space and time.
Yeah, and the thing about it, the neighborhood where our stuff is almost becoming a ghost town, because it's just say if it's 10 houses on the street, 4 of them are empty now because the older relatives have passed on and the younger ones never took to the farming life, or they went to the city and got plant jobs. And it's just it's just changing just like everything else is. But that's the way the world goes.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of the way the world goes, we got a big old world of pool right now coming out this west of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And I know we talk and focus on the West because the East is already signed, sealed, and delivered. Yeah. But, man, I'm going to let you try to recap what was and what shall be this week.
Well, the crazy thing about it, and I'm going to have to go back and look at the beginning of the season. Where did they have Alcorn picked? I think it may have been second or third, but, they slowly but steadily hanging on. And now, like we said before, they could actually control their own destiny. I think they are the only team that actually don't need help from anybody else. The Southern, they need help. Prairie View needs some help, even though they hold a head-to-head tiebreaker with Alcorn. But everybody else on the western side needs some help. And Alcorn, like I say, they just steady going along, doing what Alcorn does, play close games, find a way to win them. And then last week, I think their defense and special teams may have scored 3 touchdowns for them. So that's pretty big for the Braves over there,
especially at this time of year. And I know they had Southern pick first. It was Alcorn second. Texas Southern third, Grambling fourth, and Prairie View was fifth.
And then
coming out of the and then Pine Bluff, yes sir.
Yes.
And
yes.
With all that being said, now I will go on record, and I don't want to be right, but at the beginning of the season, I picked Alcorn to win the West, just because I could feel and sense that Coach McNair was getting his second win. They're just their second year off of COVID, being adjusted to the way things are slightly done in the West than what was done in the East, and equipped his team thus far. And I'm always, and I sound like a broken record, this man is a Houdini to be able to put together the type of programs he has, knowing the things he's up against financially alone, yet whatever other territories that fall under to produce what he's produced.
Yeah, and when you think about it, right around the time when they tried to do the quote-unquote COVID spring, some people there wanted him gone because he did what a lot of people don't like HBCU coaches to do, and people found out what was going on in-house. And that was one of the things that the administrators at the HBCUs don't like. And the president at the time, I knew who the lady was, but I think that put some people back in his corner once they saw some of the things that he was going through at his own university. They were like, well, if they doing Coach McNair like this, sort of what can we expect, or how would they do somebody else? So I think that put a lot of people back in his corner, gave him a little bit of time to help the program rebound, and then they probably got some more resources once they saw that, look, man, there's no way that some of the things that was going on should have been happening at the place where that man played football, if you understand.
Right. And it's like I say, a lot of things that go behind the scenes that the average person is not privileged to, and that's what makes sports talk. People can throw stuff up against the wall and something sticks, you run with it. If not, you try something new. But as you said, they're controlling some things right now. Now we got to get to the more murkier part of the pond, if you would. Southern Prairie View. Grambling technically has been eliminated with the loss they had this past weekend, even though they still are going to be a major player when the dust is settled.
Yeah, I think the only team that Grambling has the tiebreaker over is Prairie View, but it's sort of they've hurt themselves by the loss last week that there's no way that they can sort of catch back up to Prairie View to even get back in the tiebreaker scenario. So it's one of those, now they playing, they still have a chance for a winning record, but it's almost like say it's moral victories now. You still want to win every game you play, no matter what your record is. That's the way I always felt. But you can play the spoiler role a little bit, but the good thing about Grambling, they still have the rivalry game coming up with Southern, so they have that to look forward to. But for its championship aspirations, that horse done got out the barn and don't look like he's going to be caught anytime soon.
Right. Well, it's absolutely going to bring some added drama to the Bayou Classic, as if it needed any more, because that game could actually have Grambling fired up to say, well, guess what? If we're not going, we're going to beat you, Southern, so you all will be sitting right next to us and we'll fight over the remote control. So it's a lot to look forward to. And then on the backside of things, Alcorn, as they are in the driver's seat, even though they're going to end their season with Jackson, it's important because it's the next game, as you all like to say. But it could not really matter one way or the other if Prairie View and Southern loses. I know that sounds complicated, but it's still exciting 2 weeks remaining.
Yes, that's the key to everything, just sort of knowing what they have in front of them, and they can eliminate some people, and then everybody else is just playing for fun instead of playing to hopefully get in the championship mix and hope somebody else help them. But if I think they have Valley left and Jackson left, if I'm not mistaken. So
Alcorn? Yes. No, Texas Southern and
okay.
Jackson.
Oh yeah,
because they're going to play Texas Southern on the 12th.
They coming here on that Sunday playing. Yeah, so if they win that one, then that's like they say, Katie bought the dough, and everybody else just out there playing. So and then the Jackson game won't mean anything. But like you say, it's still a good season. It's still a chance for some teams to finish with a winning record. And that's what you start out the season playing for. That's one of your goals. The ultimate goal is to get to the championship, and hopefully you can win that, then get to the Celebration Bowl. But along the way, you still have 5 or 6 goals that you said. Let's win some, be ahead of the rankings on the conference side. Then let's win our division. Then let's finish with a winning record. Then let's win the western side. Then let's win the SWAC championship game. Then let's get to the Celebration Bowl, because the more you do that, the more times you get on TV, the more it helps your recruiting, and the more you get more revenue by playing in those games. So it's a win-win. and you like to think if you finish with a winning record, that it's a lot easier to go into the off season having won that last game of the season than it is if you finish with a losing record, or if you lose that last game, especially if your last game happens to be a rivalry game.
No doubt about it. Now, Coach, we got to address the elephant in the room. Huge game coming up this weekend on the Bluff, and I'm calling it the Battle on the Bluff between Prairie View and Southern. I know you got ties everywhere, man, but you're a former player, alum. What's going on with your Jags, man? What is the atmosphere in Baton Rouge?
Well, the thing about it is, when you don't have a trigger man, you can it hurts so much else on the football team. And I can see some of the reactions of not only the offensive players but the defensive players when he throws an interception, or when a guy thinks he's wide open, doesn't get the ball. You just see him pouting and throwing his hands up and different things like that. But like I say, they may have lost the locker room. And like I say, you could lose a game, but you can't lose the locker room. That was, that's an old coach saying, when you stick with a guy too long, or if you bring a guy that's a discipline problem back into the locker room, where a lot of guys on the team may not want him around. But you can also lose him by playing a guy that's making mistakes, and people like, well, why don't we try this? And like I say, I went to the game, and being honest with you, Mike, some of those older ladies that know football can be the biggest critics and have the loudest mouths. So I heard this at the last game. I'm trying to think. Southern was playing. It was the Texas Southern game. So an older lady that's sitting probably about 5 or 6 rows up, about the 30 or 40-yard line at Southern, she says, we going to change our name from the Jaguars to the Possums because we getting killed on the road and we playing dead at home. So it was like she said it, and it was just, the game had a nice little buzz to it, but it was like just a quietness. She just was tired of the 3 and out. And, she made some other comments throughout the game. Some I can't say on the radio, on the phone.
My God.
But, just the fact that she said that was like, you can tell the people were getting super frustrated. And like, even before Southern made the run to come back and tie the game, but people were leaving the game in the middle of the fourth quarter. And it was a reasonably close game. But I don't think they thought Southern had any chance of coming back and winning because they were struggling so much on the offensive side of the ball.
Right. Well, that was one of the reasons I was picking Alcorn to win over Southern this past week. And to be quite honest, I said I didn't think Alcorn would have a problem. Not that they were so much better, but it seemed that Southern hadn't played to the potential of expectation, and for lack of a better term, were underachieving this season, but they were winning. So when you look at it on paper, if you hadn't seen the games, well, what is everybody uptight about? But when there's a certain degree of expectation and as you say, people that know how the things should be done, it makes it a bit uncomfortable in the atmosphere. And I'm going to go on record with saying this because I'm pretty sure you get them way more than I do. But people call me like I'm the decision maker and should be telling them what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. And let me put this in the atmosphere right now. Dooley is going to stay on his job because of the way of our financial structures in HBCU world. We don't have that much money to buy anybody out, so you're going to have to adjust through attrition, probably do some adjusting on some coaching staff or whatever, but you got to ride this wave, man.
Yeah, I think part of it, too, is he's only in the second year of his contract.
Right.
And I tell people this, and speaking from my personal experience as a head coach, part of the reason why people may be more upset with him, same reason why people may have been, our defense struggled after I, quote-unquote, made a name for myself as a defensive coach. So he made a name for himself as an offensive coach. And when you're struggling on the side of the ball that you are known for, people think you can fix it with a snap of a finger. And if he goes to another quarterback, those other quarterbacks don't have experience at all. So you're going from a senior to a younger guy, but at the same time, I would say maybe get a package for those younger guys. Maybe, hey man, you got these 3 passing plays that we gonna hang our hat on. You got these 2 running plays, but all of those guys are pretty much the same person. Well, none of them are dynamic runners of the football. So just say if you go from Blood to one of the other guys, it's the same person. Yeah, but one of them has a rocket of an arm, but he tries to fit it because he has a strong arm. He might try to throw it through the linebacker instead of putting a little arc on it and getting it over his head.
Right.
So, and you can't run power read with those guys. You can run zone read, but they are not a threat to keep the ball and make you pay for it. You can't run what we call midline out of a one-back set. If you can run midline, that's a deadly play because somebody's gonna be wrong no matter how you block it. One guy's gonna be wrong, but if you're not fast enough at the quarterback spot, people are not gonna respect it. You can run it, but you're only gonna get 3 or 4 yards. But if you run it with a very athletic quarterback, the free safety is gonna be the first guy that's gonna have a chance to tackle.
Now, what I appreciate about what we do, Coach, we try to educate our listeners. And you said the midline terminology, and there are a lot of people who listen to you to learn about the game. So it's time for you to put your teaching cap on and teach those that are listening what exactly is the midline and how does it work.
So for most people, just say if you got the quarterback in the shotgun, you can run it out of 2-back or 1-back set, but it's option football. But instead of reading, most of the time we hear zone read, people are reading the defensive end. When you run midline, you can either, depending on how they line up to it, you can read the nose guard, that's the guy that's lined up in the gap between the center and the guard, or you can read the 3 technique. You usually read what we call the first defensive lineman to the same side that the running back on. So it's probably going to be the 3 tech. And then you don't block him. So you run your zone read, and the quarterback is looking to see, does that first defensive lineman, if he takes the running back, then the quarterback is going to head straight downhill, and then you figure out a way to block one of those inside linebackers. But if he sort of shuffles his feet and what we call try to slow play it, then you give it to the running back because we're always taught the running back should be a better runner of the football than the quarterback. So, you give it, and now he's headed straight downfield. So that's what we call midline. It's an old option terminology. Instead of reading the defensive end, now you read either the nose guard or the 3 technique. But I'm telling you, I hated defending that play because if you got a quarterback that's smart and fast, it's almost a nothing you can do about it because one person is wrong, and then now, like I said, he's going to be 5 yards downfield before anybody gets a chance to tackle him.
And for those that were in my Gen X area, we used to call that the triple option.
Yes, it's nothing but dive option football. But,
right, a dive option football. Yes,
midline, midline, or high dive or low dive. So that's what most people call a low dive play, and high dive would be you reading an end man on the line of scrimmage.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad that you helped bring to light with all that's going on. Now back to this, and I want to make it very clear, I'm not singling out Dooley or any other coach. What we just saw in the NFL where coaches that were great coordinators, they get the head coaching job and they find out they were better at that coordinator position than at the head coaching position. And we know the dynamics of responsibilities change. But sometimes you'll get that guy who's used to being that shot caller coordinator. When he gets that head coaching job, it's hard for them to relinquish their OC duties, and then that kind of makes it a little bit challenging for them to start, especially if it's your first or you're considered a novice in this particular position, right?
Yeah, so one of the things that, people will tell you is be your own best coach. If you're the head coach, you've been somebody else's best coach on the staff. So now be your own best head coach. So that means do what you've been doing for some people, but depending on the dynamics of the university, where the head, you may not have an administrative assistant, you may not have, X, Y. It's a couple different things that will determine pretty much, do you have time to dedicate yourself to football? At some schools, coaches have to go to meetings on the other side of campus. They may have to meet with the athletic director weekly, the president, some booster clubs, some fundraisers. And no matter how you cut it up, it takes away from football. Whereas if you are just an offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, you very rarely have to deal with those situations unless the head coach dedicates you to, hey, man, I need you to go speak at this alumni meeting on my behalf or something like that. So that's one of the biggest thing is just the time constraints as a head coach. And to me, I think it's easier for an offensive coach to be the head coach and still call plays, because now systems are really based off of numbers. So just say if you see a cover 2, then pretty much these are the running plays that we're going to run if you see cover 2. So as an offensive coach, all you need to know is where or when do they like to blitz, and then how are we going to attack it. As a defensive coach, I just think you have to know every little detail of how are they going to block things, what routes they like to run. To me, it's easier, and because of the time constraints of being an offensive coach as opposed to a defensive coach. But at the same time, you still want to be your best coach and do what you think is going to give the program the best opportunity. And then you have to think about the budget. Do they even, at some schools, do you have a budget to hire an offense coordinator, or are you trying to, if you're a low-paying school, do you say, well, I'll serve as my own coordinator and pay my coaches a little bit more money? So it's how you want to, divide this pie up.
Right. And it's not one of those pool pies. It's one of them side pies you used to be able to get from Church's Chicken. I don't know if you remember anything about that. They sell them pecan pies. And you know what I'm talking about, Coach? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
And so, so when you look at it, it's tomato. Either way, you got to figure this thing out. Now, when we get back to the field of play, there's going to be pressure on both programs, but because of the circumstances and the fact that it is going to be on the bluff, I got the feel, even though we say there is no pressure and there are other things, the pressure has to be building just a little bit with anticipation for this week's matchup. Would I be off base to think that?
Oh, no. I think both coaches got to be feeling it. I don't think the crowd is going to be as big as some, because they're coming off a loss to a heated rival, and you have the Bayou Classic coming up in a couple weeks. So some people might say, well, I ain't going to that game, or I'll try to catch it on TV or listen to it on the radio and save my money for the Bayou Classic. So I know that's the thought process of some people. So, but I do think, both coaches, they may not say it, but it's real important to, if Coach McDowell can win, that still puts them on track to have a winning season, and it keeps them in the hunt. And for Coach Dooley, he's probably still thinking we need to finish with a winning record, win another game at home, finish with a home winning record, and then going into the Bayou Classic on a good note, because ain't nothing like going into the Bayou Classic. You got a week off, and you going into the game with a big game with a loss on a off week. That's not a good thing, in my opinion. Having been down there before, it's you're pretty much gonna be the only ones on campus for a few days, and that's not a good way to walk around or be in Baton Rouge with everybody focused on that game. Going into it with a loss.
Right. Now, and plus, if you can seal this thing up and win early, you could possibly rest a few guys that are banged up and nicked up pretty bad, as it appears that FAMU will be able to do. But, of course, they want to be able to win every game that's in front of them. Got a question to ask you about this, Coach, and you've seen pretty much all the teams play. We know that FAM is going to be representing the East. from your knowledge base and your vantage point, who do you think from the West would be the best matchup for FAMU and why?
Well, you know what? I have not seen Alcorn play in person, but I would have to say it has to be them. Being honest with you, Southern had a chance to win that game. A linebacker dropped a pass late in the game. Southern had penalties, so they pretty much moved Florida A&M down late in the ball game. But the linebacker dropped the interception, which would have taken the ball away from Florida A&M, and they don't score their last touchdown. But Florida A&M team looked different than everybody else's. Like I said, I've asked a couple people about them, but the two big defensive tackles that they have, I thought when I saw Jackson State play, I thought Jackson State defensive line was by far the best, but those two tackles that they have are above and beyond what anybody else has. So that's what makes them so good. And then, like I say, with the eye candy, Musa hadn't played great, but he's played well enough for them to win all the games that they needed to win. And, like I say, I would like to say Alcorn, but I have not seen. I like to look at the bodies and see, do they look different at certain positions from everybody else? Now, at one time, Alcorn used to have the biggest offensive line in the conference, and they had some running backs that after about midway through the third quarter, you didn't want to tackle those guys, so they can make a difference. And they kept some good receivers. They wasn't just gonna blow you away, but they kept a lot of 6'1", 6'2" guys out there to keep you honest enough to where they can throw up some balls and make some plays for them. But they always had the biggest offensive line, so they look different from everybody else from that standpoint. So it's I would have to say, having not seen them, just about knowing what they've been through, I would have to say Alcorn is going to provide the best shot, unless you get a Prairie View team that played them like they played the first time when they beat them, but they would have to play better this time. And I know they lost a couple guys on the offensive line, but it still is Alcorn going to get the best shot because of what they've done, not personnel wise, but and they have this belief about themselves. And a lot of times when you have that belief that you can do this, you can go out and do it. A lot of people think they can do it, but Alcorn is probably the team that says, we know we can do it.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this, because we always say it's about the quarterback and not putting any kid out on the limb like that. Which quarterback do you trust the most out of those three?
Oh, man, at one time, I would go back and say, at one time it looked like Gramblin's quarterback was playing better than everybody else, because I saw him play. I saw the Prairie View game, and I saw one other game that they played earlier in the season. But I saw a little bit of Alcorn's quarterback versus Southern, and it's just like news clips, and he threw some good balls from what I saw, and they made some plays for him. Blood and Connolly, no disrespect, but sometimes I just think either they're not processing it fast enough or they hearing footsteps. And, I would have to go back either to Alcorn's quarterback or Gramblin's quarterback, depending on what they're doing. If they got all their receivers in play, if they keep the ball on the exterior of the field, not throwing it over the middle, and, they letting them make the easy reads. It's a high-low read only on the outside. We're not going high-low, or we're not throwing crossing routes and all that type of stuff. But I at one time I would have said Grambling, but I would have to probably say Alcorn's quarterback, and then followed by everybody else on the western side.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. And not that we are not concerned about FAM, or we thinking FAM's going to wrap things up. Pretty good, successful run. And to be quite honest with you, Coach, I don't think they've actually played a total, complete game of their expectation as of yet.
No, like I say, if you go back and look at it, they played some games. Even the Texas Southern game, they played a lot closer than people thought it was going to be. And then if you go back to the Southern game, where I know Musa missed, I would say 3 touchdowns. If he just makes a decent throw, they have 3 more touchdowns. He missed a guy on the slant that was wide open. He missed a wheel route that was wide open. Then he missed a flat route that Southern lost the guy in the picks and the rubs, and he overthrew the ball. So, and he didn't play a good game against them, but their defense kept them in the game just by Southern not being able to run the ball. So, he really hadn't, like Coach was saying, he hadn't played that great, but he's played well enough for them to keep winning. So, and, you could say the same thing about Alabama State. They playing a lot of games that they winning closely, but like you say, defense travels. So all they want their quarterback to do is, look, man, it's okay if we punt the ball, just don't throw a pick 6, and we'll be fine. We'll find a way to win late.
Well, that's the team that is under everyone's radar, in my opinion, because it's obviously they don't have a chance of winning the East, but Alabama State is playing some good team football right now. And I am very, very concerned. I'm concerned about the Southern game for Prairie View, but I'm even more concerned about Alabama State coming to the Hill for that final game of the season, especially when and if all the marbles are on the line.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a good defensive game, in my opinion. If Prairie View go get this win against Southern, I think they're going to come in knowing that they have a chance to have a winning record. I think 2 of Alabama State's coaches were on the staff at Prairie View before, but they don't know these kids, but they know about what's going on with them. But it's going to be a chance for Alabama State to go into the off season, unless they have one more game the week after, and a chance for Prairie View to finish with a winning record. So that, like I say, that means a lot, finishing with a winning record. And I think both defenses will play with. Now, it's going to be one of them games where you better buckle your chin strap up and put on some extra cushion under your shoulder pads, because there's going to be some hitting going on, especially if it's some cool weather. It's going to be a great day for some football.
No doubt about it. Talking with Coach Heist Northern, our coaching guru for football here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. We're heading toward the end of the season, big weekend. The battle at the Bluff between the Panthers and the Jags on Saturday. Coach, it's obviously on behalf of Prairie View and recently of Southern, a lot of personal foul penalties on both programs. And depending on who you ask, some say it's coaches, some say it's lack of discipline, some say this, that, and the other. How much of that can really be put on the coaches for personal fouls and miscues and mental breakdowns like that, and how much of that really if the players are just going to have to own up to?
Man, that's one of the tough ones, because as a coach, it's something that you preach and talk about, just the selfishness of it, getting a personal foul. Like I say, it's 2 penalties that kill you, live pre-snap and post-play, post-whistle. And I think at the game that I was at on Saturday, I saw 4 personal fouls on Prairie View, and it may have actually been 5. But that was, and I could see Coach McDowell about to blow a gasket, because I know he's talked to those guys about it. I could hear him say, what did we talk about during this situation? Okay, they got a celebration penalty, and it's like, guys, it's almost like they not thinking of the consequences of running down the field or taking your helmet off. Just those types of things that has not only do the coaches talk to them about it, the referees come at the beginning of the season and talk to, okay, these are some things that that you will get a personal foul for. And then you see guys, pushing somebody, punching somebody, and at the end of the day, it don't even hurt. Now, sometimes, well, they the second guy to get caught, but that's what coaches always tell you. They're not going to catch the first guy. They're going to see you, because now you back on your feet, and for you to shove somebody in the face mask or try to grab somebody's face mask or throw a little sucker punch that the guy that you hit don't even feel it, is on you being selfish, because I know those guys have been, like I say, what do people expect a coach to do besides talk to them? You can't put your hands on them. You can run them, but some guys don't understand that. So it's, and being a son of a coach, it has always been hard for me to hear people blame a coach for something that they have been told and shown multiple times not to do. So it's just one of those, man. As a coach, you have to take responsibility of it. Man, sometimes it's hard taking responsibility for something that you had nothing to do with.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, and you hear it all the time, the battle cry. Man, the coach ain't teaching them. I said, and my question is always this: so, do you really believe that this coach, whose livelihood is dependent upon 17 to 23-year-olds, in some cases 25, 26, but do you really think he's not dotting I's and crossing T's on what they should and shouldn't be doing? To me, that makes nobody's sense. Nobody's sense, but it's neither here nor there. So if you have to break this thing down percentage-wise, from what I'm gathering, the bulk of this has to be on that player, right?
I would say yes, because, it's just like a parent that's told their son or daughter, look, these are the perils of what can happen if you do X, Y, Z. And for that child not to listen, it's no different than a coach harping two guys about it. And it's not just Coach McDowell, it's not just Coach Dooley. It's sort of one of those rampant things, like kids get too caught up in the emotion, don't want to be disrespected, and he did this to me. Like, yeah, but that's part of football, So
right.
And then to see guys run out of the players' box, I think that was the one where I thought Coach was going to actually grab somebody, because I could see him and hear him telling me, man, we already talked about this. Like, have y'all forgot? So it's, I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
I know. I know, Coach. I know. And but you know what? Today's coaching, I don't care if it's football, basketball, baseball, tiddlywinks. It's hard today to coach, and I know that there are large sums of money being paid for these coaches on these greater platforms, but it's not enough money to go around for these coaches to put up with what they have to put up with in today's time. The players are bigger, faster, stronger, but all of them need to take a trip on the yellow brick road to go see the Oz to get some hearts. A bunch of tin men running around there. They looking good, looking like Greek gods, but have no heart at all and can't take anything, whether it's verbally, physically. And I know I'm about to sound like an old man. Get off my lawn. Well, here you go. Get off my lawn. You're playing one of the most physical, brutal sports on the planet. And you getting in your feelings because somebody raised their voice at you? Come on, man.
Yeah, that's the tough thing about it, when guys, like you say, get in their feelings, talking about, don't nobody talk to me like that. And, part of it is, and some of them, to be honest with you, have never had a man, less more a black man, raise their voice at them. And I've heard that before. Like, I've never had, if they grew up in a single-parent home, most of the coaches sort of cater to them. They never fuss at them. They'll talk to them a certain way, but they never been fussed at, And God forbid you fuss at them and use a curse word. That's a whole nother dynamic for some of those guys. But, I would tell guys this: listen to the music that you listen to. So every time, you listening to music, everything is cuss word this, cuss word that, N word this, N word that. But the minute one of your teammates say something to you, you want to say, don't nobody talk to me like that. No, that's not true. Or the minute one of the coaches raise their voice at you, oh man, don't nobody talk to me like that. And then you also have to deal with guys. I would tell guys, look, if you're gonna fuss at one person, be ready to fuss at all of them. So don't not fuss at or talk to one of your teammates because that's your boy, even though you know he made a mistake. It has to be everybody can get it. One of those, no matter if he's my boy or not, if he's gonna hurt this football team. And I've seen it, like even with my son's baseball team, one kid took a knee and somebody said something to one kid because, they sort of didn't like the kid. But somebody else did the same exact thing and nobody said anything to him. So I pulled my son aside like, look, man, when you see something like that, you have to be the guy to say, hey, man, don't fuss at him if you didn't fuss at him. So, and that's the way, I would have to talk to guys about that. Like, look, you have to be equal opportunity, if you're going to be a leader, whether it's a good player or a bad player. Everybody, if it is correct, everybody has a right to correct. And then some people don't understand the difference between discipline and punishment. It's two different things. And a lot of players think the minute you raise your voice or chastise, it is punishment versus discipline or correction. So that's, like I said, we can talk hours on hours about the softness or the not being able to take coaching or the lack of men, the lack of black men that some of these guys have, either dealt with or not dealt with, depending on where they went to school and those types of things.
Right. You reminded me of a story when you was talking about this one. I was at Prairie View. We was playing at U of H, and we had some pitiful equipment, Coach. We had probably 5 to 6 batting helmets, and 4 of them were cracked. Okay, so if you got on base and you have to have on, you could run with the cracked helmet on the bases, but you had to bat with the best helmet, right? So we only had these 2 helmets, and John Tankersley was our coach, rest his soul. And my first at bat, I hit a home run, and I'm feeling good about myself. And my next at bat, now the umpire already gave us these warnings about the helmets. And so I get up the bat, and this guy throws me a hanging curveball, Coach. I foul tipped it for strike 3. I'm like, how in the world did I miss that ball? I take the helmet and slam it out of frustration. Now, mind you, we only had 2 good helmets left. Yeah. Coach Tank, you ever seen Coach Tank? You knew who Coach Tank was, right?
I know who
you probably
he
didn't
is,
know it.
No, sir.
Yeah, okay. Well, Coach Tankersley was an old football player that was coaching baseball, and he had to be about 6'4", 6'5". He was a tall, big man. The hands huge, man. Like he could grab a watermelon like it was a basketball and just walk with it, and be done with it. So he go, we ain't got nothing as it is, and you trying to tell what we got. And so I'm listening to him. I ain't saying nothing because he's right. He's right. I should have not thrown the helmet down. But I got my hand. Coach, I'm still thinking, how did I miss that ball? I'm listening to him. I never said anything. I'm sitting there taking it all in. But my head is down because I'm frustrated at myself. And he's standing up over me. And imagine this 6'4", 275-pound man. He takes his hands and like uppercuts me to lift my head up. Blah, 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 look at me when I'm talking to you. Yeah. And I'm looking, and I just got a straight stare in my face looking at him. I'm upset I struck out. I'm not tripping off the fact that you just lift my head up. I mean, my dad had done a whole lot worse to me than that. But he sees this look in my eyes, and he looks to his left real quick, and he looks to his right, and he grabs this bat. He said, get up if you want to. I'll knock you out. And so I said, we laughed about it on the way back. Because Judge say, well, we called him Judge. He said, well, Judge. He called everybody Judge. He said, well, Judge. He said, I didn't know where you looking, man. I thought I was going to have to fight you off. I said, no, Coach, you wasn't going to have to worry about that. But my whole point was, today, you fired, being sued, and the university's being sued. And I'm not advocating whooping on kids. Somebody going to hear this. So what you saying, it's all right to abuse somebody. Get out your feelings. Get out your feelings. But sometimes, especially in the heat of battle, things are going to be said, and sometimes things might be done to be able. I don't remember who it was, but the coach was talking to the player, and he was holding his cage while he was looking him in his face and talking. They got him in history like that. Man, I thought that was just part of coaching coming up. I really did, but I don't know. We didn't got into a rabbit hole, Coach. We got to get up out of it. We got to get up out of it. You got a story for me this week, Coach?
Man, I'm going to tell you about how I came to Prairie View. So it's sort of a couple-part story. So when I was at Grambling, the head coach that was there, he wanted everybody to interview for their jobs again. He had never worked with anybody there. He had been there for a while, but he, wanted everybody to come in and re-interview for your job. Like he was a totally new head coach. So the first guy goes in, who was a grad assistant that he went to school at Prairie View. He goes in and he wears his regular work attire. So, coach tells him, like, I'm not going to retain you. You didn't take the job interview serious. He's like, what are you talking about, coach? So he said, man, you didn't even dress. So, once word got out, like, we had to wear a shirt and tie to interview for a job at a place that we already were working at. So I go in for my interview, and, I dressed the part. And I had been coaching quarterbacks. I coached the freshman of the year in the conference. And he asked me about going back to the defensive side of the ball. I said, well, Coach, to be honest with you, I feel like I'm a better coach than the guy you want me to work for. But if that's what you want, I'll do it, because I had switched positions right before the season started. So come back a couple weeks later, and the guy tells me, and he offered me the assistant head coach job. 2 weeks later, he calls me into his office and says, look, man, I'm not gonna keep you on the staff. So, I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm gonna let you go. So, I started telling people on the staff, and I told my mother, who was still alive at the time. She was like, boy, stop playing. You play too much. I'm like, nah, seriously, I've lost my job. So I called a guy, James Jones, who was the defense coordinator at Prairie View. I had met him in Buffalo through my brother. So I called James. I said, hey, man, I'm on the market looking for a job. I just got let go. So he's like, man, we got an opening at Prairie View, but I think he's going to fill it with somebody. So I call, he calls and, he talks to Coach Frazier, from who I had met only once before. So we talked a couple of times. Then Coach Frazier said, okay. He said, look, you can have this, you can come in, but you have to teach as well as coach football. So he said, I need you to come teach. You're going to go to the human performance department. So I have to talk to this lady. She said, look, you're going to come and teach my human sexuality class for a day. So I have to teach about viral and non-viral sexually transmitted diseases. So I have to do that. I passed there with flying colors. Now, mind you, I'm sweating up a storm because I sweat a lot sometimes. Get through that part. So the next week, he wants me to come in, and my wife comes with me. So he said, look, I'm going to grill at the house. Why don't you and your wife come by after you finish looking at houses or whatever, and, we talk football. So, man, Mike, I'm from Louisiana. So when we get to Coach Frazier's house, when he say grilling, I'm thinking he's talking about barbecuing sitting on the back deck. Mike,
right.
This joker had put some burgers and hot dogs on a George Foreman grill, man. I thought
Oh my goodness!
I thought that was the funniest
Oh,
thing.
you had me thinking barbecue.
Hey man, me and my wife laugh about that to this day. When we talk about like sort of like how do we even get out here? Just all the things that happen. So we go through that and we talk about that. And my wife was like, "Hey, I don't know how you feel about coming out here because they were getting the program turned around, but she was like, I don't know if that's the kind of person you can work for because it didn't seem like he was very intense because he kept saying like if we do this and if we do that, it wasn't when or it was like these are the things that we can do, and and then the other thing about it, I was supposed to be just a linebackers coach, and some other guy turned the job down. And when the guy turned the job down, he said, "Look here, man, I'm gonna make you the coordinator." So I was like, "Okay, that's I had been a coordinator, defense coordinator before, and everything sort of worked out." But it was almost like all these little crazy things that happened. But like I say, to me and my wife, the funniest thing was, we thinking we gonna sit out on the back deck and drink some margaritas and. When that joker talking about, man, he put that stuff on the George for him, we thought that was the funnest. Like I said, and I think it may have just been the Louisiana versus the East Coast thing.
Right.
And then,
look, that ain't just Louisiana. I'm from Missouri. When I heard really, I said, okay, he about to put it on the pit. Yeah, we about to make something happen.
Nah,
the only good thing about that, Coach, at least you ate half. You didn't have the extra fat.
Yeah, we ate, and but like I say, just her thought was, I don't know if she didn't think that he was intense enough for me because she knew how I was, and come to find out he was, a type A personality, was real good with the organization part, and he let us coach. That's one thing. Like people think it's funny when I tell him, me and Coach Sewell always like. If you ask Coach Frazier, like, tell me something that y'all did on defense with Northern, he could probably tell you, like, maybe 2 or 3 things, but the thing that he would do was he would call me in the office and say, just say we playing against somebody with a real good player on us. He's like, how you going to stop such and such? And then once he listened to me say, this how we going to do stuff, he was like, okay then, and that was it. So it was it was a sort of a good match because he didn't mess with me much. He let me run my meetings the way I wanted to. I met early in the morning, and nobody else did that at the time over here. And he just let us do what we did, and it worked out for everybody. But like I say, getting here and having to teach, that was a whole different ball game. It's some other stuff dealing with that teaching stuff. Boy, I tell you what, if I could turn back the hands of time and get out of that classroom,
oh man, well, we got some more because I was going to ask you some more questions. I said, but I think I'm going to have to let that dangle because we're going to have a lot more football to talk about. We got this week left. We got next week. Then we're going to have the SWAC championship, the MEAC SWAC championship. So we got a lot of football, and I know you got some stories to share. Coach, man, I always appreciate you making time to come and be with us and share. I want to give you some closing thoughts and comments for this week, sir.
Well, the thing about it is, man, for everybody, just sort of hang in there with your coaches and with your players and try to show them that you are supporting them, sort of thick or thin, hell or high water, as they say. Try to let people know that you have their back because it's crazy how things can turn for the better with either support. You get one player here, one player there through a recruiting or a transfer, and like you say, the biggest thing is we need those kids. They need supporters, not fans, and just if you got their back, have their back at all times. Don't be, as they say, wishy-washy. Have your people back, no matter what, and support those kids first and foremost. Like I say, even if you don't like the coach personally, think about those kids. And that's one thing that when I went back to Prairie View, I saw some people that I know, had my back and had those kids back. And I can see when those former players pass by some of those people that they knew had they back, you know, with the hugs and kiss. I knew that those people were proud of what they did for those kids, and those kids were thankful for what those alumni, the Panther backers, and the different groups that I saw, you know, for what they had done for them. So just have your people back, no matter what school you rooting for.
No doubt about it. Very well stated, sir. He is Coach Heist Northern. I'm not going to put you on the spot this week, Coach, for the game of the week. I know what the game of the week is, but I sure ain't going to ask you to pick a winner. I know who you put rooting for. We're going to keep that between you and I. But it's all good. It's all good.
Hey, the cat mascot going to win.
I know that's right. Right. It's a feline battle. A feline's going to win.
The A&M school going to win out of Southern.
The team with the gold is going to win, right?
Yeah, a little bit of gold in their uniform.
Yeah, there you go. Coach Heist Northern, I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. We thank you guys so much for joining in with us each and every day. You can follow me on X at The Mike Prince Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Don't forget to visit our 24-hour stream on the website at obnradio.com. And until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.